Take a look at this archival photograph. We are generally taught that this is the ideal way to grow food. Perfectly straight, mathematically precise rows of identical tomato plants, completely cleared of any competing weeds or variation. But look closely at the dark brown rot spreading across this stem and fruit. Gardens engineered for perfect order can appear completely healthy on a Tuesday and completely collapse to blight or an aphid infestation by Friday. We look at neat, uniform blocks of crops and see efficiency. We see cleanliness. But nature operates on an entirely different set of rules. It presents a strange paradox. Why do the gardens that look the most organized often fall apart the fastest? The answer comes down to spatial arrangement. When you plant a massive concentration of genetically identical crops in one single space, you create a monoculture. To make a garden look neat, we remove all the biological diversity. But in doing so, we strip away the environment's natural friction. We remove the physical obstacles that slow a disease down. This diagram illustrates exactly how an incoming threat perceives a monoculture. To a specialized fungal spore, a solid block of cucumbers provides a vast, uninterrupted food source. Because every plant in the vicinity shares the exact same genetic vulnerabilities, the pathogen doesn't have to adapt. It moves from one host to the next, spreading exponentially as it finds a perfect match just inches away. History provides heavy evidence of how this works. During the 1840s, much of the Irish potato crop relied heavily on tightly packed, genetically similar plants. When late blight arrived, the pathogens swept through the fields completely unchecked, and entire harvests failed. Looking at the massive scale in this historical photograph of a tractor plowing a uniform field, you can see the mechanical appeal. Single crop fields make planting and harvesting highly efficient, but without spatial diversity, keeping these plants alive mandates constant artificial chemical defense. Planting large blocks of identical crops effectively engineers an optimized superhighway for pathogens. Compare that to the ecosystem model shown here. You have deep purple cabbages, tall greens, and bright flowers, physically mixing together. This is a polyculture, and it is the direct structural countermeasure to a disease outbreak. Let's track that same pathogen as it arrives in this diversified space. The spore lands on a tomato plant, but the adjacent crop is a basil leaf. Tomato blight cannot infect basil. The transmission chain terminates. The spore has reached a biological stop. Biologists call this associational resistance. A pest that specializes in attacking cabbage relies on chemical signals to find its target. But when you surround that cabbage with strong-smelling alliums and herbs, it creates a sensory scramble. The pest literally cannot navigate to its host. Even if the pests do successfully navigate that maze, they face a biological roadblock. Plants like these dill flowers provide precise habitat, shelter, and nectar required to support an active army of natural predators. Ladybugs, lacewings, and parasitic wasps move into these habitats. As seen here, they act as biological reinforcements, actively hunting and controlling aphid populations long before they can explode into a severe infestation. By simply mixing varied plants together, the garden forces an outbreak to run an obstacle course. It hits physical roadblocks, faces sensory scrambles, and biological predators, steadily dismantling the disease's momentum. But the most powerful defense mechanism actually happens entirely out of sight, beneath the soil surface. Look at this intricate network. Down in the dirt, plant roots are constantly interacting with billions of microscopic organisms. Fungi, bacteria, and nematodes. Different plant species exude different chemical compounds from their roots. When you plant a wide variety of mixed crops above ground, you feed a highly varied microbial community below ground. This dense, diverse population of microbes naturally outcompetes and starves out disease-causing pathogens. You cannot buy a healthy soil microbiome. You have to engineer it. And a rich biological diversity above ground is strictly required to build that powerful, self-regulating, invisible immune system below ground. Bringing biological diversity back into a garden does not mean you have to abandon order. You don't need a chaotic, messy yard to reap the benefits of ecology. You can use companion planting and interplanting to create structured layers of protection. In this layout, a deliberate border of marigolds shields the taller tomato plants, creating ecological friction without sacrificing any harvest efficiency. This is exactly why crop rotation works over time. By constantly shifting where plant families grow year after year, you repeatedly remove the preferred hosts from the soil, starving out localized pathogens. The goal of these ecological strategies isn't to create a perfectly sterile, disease-free environment. Spores will always blow in on the wind. The goal is to build a highly stable environment, one that can absorb biological stress without collapsing. This dynamic extends far beyond the edges of a backyard garden. Look at the stark contrast in this aerial view. Nature has always relied on extreme diversity as its primary survival strategy against disaster. Forests recover, uniform fields fail. Achieving this requires a shift in philosophy. Prioritize building self-regulating balance over manual intervention. As plant diversity increases, the requirement for human panic, constant chemical spraying, and back-breaking labor drops away. So the next time you design a garden, look closely at the empty dirt, because those spaces between your plants and what you choose to fill them with are exactly what determine whether an outbreak succeeds.